Good evening. As Ms. Turner had indicated, if there's any questions that the trustees or the board would have regarding the water rate, I think you were given a presentation approximately a week ago regarding a couple recommendations, and I have that in front of me if you have questions regarding that. Okay, just to give you a recap, the current situation with your water rate is that you're at $3.50 per 1,000 gallons. What has been assessed thus far by Bud, your consultant, and Steve from my firm, is that your current water system is operating at a loss. And the first thing to do before you consider any of the other issues is to get your house in order and get a rate that will allow your system to operate at a break-even at minimum. So I think that has been discussed, and they had done an assessment, and that assessment had indicated that the water rate would have to move from approximately $3.50, your current rate, to approximately $5.50 to bring the system into a healthier position to handle all operating costs as it's currently structured today. So that $2 difference is the increase you would have to approve to get to the $5.50 per 1,000 gallons.
I have a question.
Trustee Burgess.
Thank you. The $5.50, did it take into consideration the money that we just had to spend for airstripping and possible supplies and everything that goes with that as far as what the emergency plan? Basically what we had to do the last 3 weeks and until I guess November until we get the permanent airstrippers in and things like that. Is that $5.50 going to cover that, or we have to come back in another month or so and reassess and go up again?
Trustee Burgess, the assessment has been made, as I mentioned, based on the current operations. So the additional costs that are being incurred this past couple of weeks, we still don't know exactly how much of that cost is to be borne by the village and how much is going to be borne by the IEPA. So that is still being worked out yet, and Ms. Turner has mentioned the meeting that they will be having with the IEPA. So when that is determined, then that becomes part of that next phase that you will have to consider a rate adjustment for, which is as Ms. Turner had indicated, the Part A, the Part B, and the Part C of your process. As you start to look at Part B, where you have the infrastructure, that will be considered in terms of that plus the whatever that number is for these strippers and all of the costs that related to this past couple of weeks. And that will be considered in this next step, which will, as the numbers come in more clearly, will have to be factored in and communicated back to you in terms of what kind of a rate will be needed to cover that.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You're recommending that we raise it to $5.50 now with a future raise of whatever, but there will be a future raise. I would say, since you're talking about the air strippers, or since it was spoken today that the permanent air strippers will be here in November, which we're going to bore that cost too, because that's a separate cost. That's not our EPA, that's our cost. So all of us get our water bill every other month, twice a month. So by the time we get our second water bill, which will be in 4 months, we will have possibly another increase unless we find someone that's going to fund this without us paying it back. Even though they're going to be funded, by IEPA, they expect to get it paid back. So even if we go out and get anything from them right now, this 550 that we're talking about increasing will just keep us even. What we're doing right now, no outside funding from anyone else. We're looking for funding from somewhere else, either IEPA, through South Suburban Surveyors and Managers, or through a financial institution. We're still looking for outside funding, which this 550 will not cover. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so therefore, correct me if I'm wrong, by the second water bill, which will probably be, if you get it every 2 months, 4 months from now, we'll be coming back at another increase. Basically, because hopefully by then we have secured funding and we have to show that we have to pay it back, because we have to get some kind of funding so we can get the permanent air strippers, as was stated, before the winter. So I'm sure they're going to be ordered at some time. So even if we are able to borrow the money from whoever we borrow it from, we still have to show a willingness to pay it back. So I'm not asking you to give me a number right now. I'm just asking, is that basically a 80% chance that we will be coming back within the next 4 to 5 months for another increase?
That is the second step in the process.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Trustee, if you would have went online and asked for it, there is already an ordinance proposed out, and both of those prices are in it. Of course, at 5 months from today's date, it will be raised again. And one will be immediately, and the other will be 5 months. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, I'll make little rates.
Mr. Mayor, may I read what says in the ordinance? Or a proposed ordinance? Whereas the village water rates are not sufficient to cover the expenses of the village current water system, and therefore the village finds that it's necessary to raise water rates to $5.50 per 1,000 gallons immediately in order to cover existing necessary costs for the maintenance and operation of the village water system. And whereas the village water system requires treatment to remove vinyl chloride contaminant, and therefore the village finds it necessary to raise the water rates to $7.50 per 1,000 gallons effective 6 months from today's date, February 14, 2013, in order to cover the necessary costs of the maintenance and operation and treatment of the water system of the village of Sauk Village. That is in the ordinance form, sir. And I received that ordinance from the law firm this afternoon, Dr. Ford, 22.
Can the resident get a copy of that?
That's right.
See that?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Mayor. The increase tonight that the petition will vote on, which will raise it to $5.50 immediately, is that for water only, or does that also include sewer, utility tax, and garbage?
Your accounting system has those three split, and this is specifically covering water.
Okay. We know that our garbage increased, which was never increasing our water bill.
I spoke to Mohan, who will be here tonight. Mohan, in reference to that increase, any other increases at that time, and he was doing a study to that. And Mohan, we can present that to you in reference to that. We want to come up with the water rate increase stuff, but Mohan has been doing a study in reference to the additional costs associated with sideline as well as the sewer increase as well.
And I guess the question I have is, if we have an ordinance before us tonight, why would not everything be involved in that ordinance for that increase? Why would we vote for a water increase now, and it appears come back later to raise it because of garbage, and come back later raise it because of sewers? Why isn't that all involved in the same ordinance?
We've been trying to work very hard on getting the water rates and doing the study. We just met yesterday in reference to that. The attorneys are working very, very hard. We're trying to get those numbers together. This is a work in progress. So the attorney said we want to definitely get those numbers fine-tuned. We have the support in reference to that. Mohan has been in and out since vacation and was only able to address those issues today. He wasn't in the office yesterday. So that's why we weren't able to get those numbers before now.
Do you have the numbers?
Hence, I have the garbage increase from the garbage rates adjusted by Skyline from $33.50 to $34.50. That's going to be effective as of 8/1/2012. The sewer,
14 days ago,
yeah, that's right.
April 2012 or August?
August 1, 2012. It's going to be increased to $34.50. Because right now it's $33.50. The sewer rates, whatever the board decides, will hold it, rates, whatever the board decides. Presently, only we are talking about the water rate increase. The sewer rates is going to be charged the same way.
So it's like 50% or 1,000 or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right now we have 99 cents per 1,000 gallons. The difference in increase from last year was 3 cents per 1,000. And the debt service will be $10.56 a month. That will be doubled for 15 months. So it comes almost to $21.12. And the difference is, based on last year, the difference is whatever board decides, the increase, we will
So we were at 550, based off what you're telling us right now. We already know it's another $1. Yes. If you all figure out that we're paying 5,000, so the yard goes $1 added on to the bill. And we're looking at approximately 30 cents per 1,000 for sewer. I guess we know for sure it's 580, which would include sewer, but that doesn't include water.
And what rate of compliance, if you look at our current water bills, where's our current rate of compliance?
We're at 96%, but just everyone in this last couple of weeks received the estimated bill because our staff were busy doing other things that didn't get out of chance to read. But from the announcement, we took the average, we're at 96% compliant.
And that's with the current rate.
Correct.
When we looked into, I know when Bud was here last week, Jason, he came up with the schedule of going to 550 and then 750 and then thinking about beyond. Did we think about, I don't want to run into attention, but did we think about rate of compliance? Back then at all? Because as the ordinance states now, it's got the 2 prices in it for now and it's 6 months. I think any increases that we're looking at in the future, we need to look at the present rate of compliance now and what we're going to have then. Because I'm sure everybody got their mailbox or I'm hoping it's not just me, a copy of a resident's water bill saying that they're not paying for the water and they paid for sewer, they paid for garbage, they're not paying for the water. Because they were told not to. I'm not sure they told them not to, unless they heard it on YouTube or saw it on YouTube, because we have elected officials saying not to pay for the water. But if that's the case, as I said last week, it's not going to matter what we charge for water. Because we are never going to meet that amount of money that we need to get that result. If people are not paying the water bill, and if we're banking on water bill funding to pay back for the water that we're providing, we'll never meet that. So I think that when we're looking into increases, we need to take that into consideration.
Unfortunately, we looked at all those aspects in reference to that. But as Mr. Grable was saying, we have to first do our housekeeping to make sure that our fund is paying for itself. And then as we take on additional debt, that we be able to do that. The only numbers that I can have is what has happened historically, which is at about 96%. Now, I spoke to like the graph, and we're going to do some aggressive things in reference to there's some outfitting bills, if you need some property, there's some things such as that we're going to be putting in place to help with the collection rate. There's some things we have to do in reference to billing and looking at our meters and things such as that. It's part of our distribution in reference to that, which is all part of the presentation we're going to make. So those all things will take into consideration, but we can only work with the numbers that we have, and I believe we're at 96%.
And was that the expected number used for the increases? We expected the 96% high rate? Okay, understood.
No, I know the customer is supposed to come and pay for the water bill, sewer, like carpet, they all together. You don't make any difference at all. If the water bill, sewer bill, and the garbage bill total amounts to $122, you have to fire pay all of them. So it's not less. You address it by
Trustee Williams, if I could just follow up that report that was given by Bud Mason. They did the calculation and they arrived at approximately $5.13 should we go. So the cushion, as they saw it, that might be needed for that issue was most of the reason for increasing that from $5.13 to $5.50.
And I appreciate that the village manager said that she's been speaking with Michael Bell and looking at possibilities of liens and things like that. I would like to have the board have monthly updates as far as shut-offs, late payments, no payments, and partial payments, as is like what we received here, which I consider as a partial payment. They pay for sewer and garbage, but not for water. I'd also like the board to review.
You said monthly, it should be bi-monthly because there's one cycle and there's another cycle and they're not the same. And we can see what reports Cindy can put together in reference to that.
We send out like the north side and the south side of the national, right? That's what I'm talking about. A monthly, obviously, they'll be on different parts of the village, but we would be receiving information monthly. I would also like this board to review the current policies, any updates that the village manager and Mr. McGrath are working on regarding liens and other ways to make sure that we remain compliant with receiving the payments. I'd like the board to be kept knowledgeable about that because it does seem like we're going to have to be more aggressive. And if that's going to involve changing our policies with water bill collection, if that's going to involve other things, the board needs to be aware of it. Because I just don't anticipate that we're going to have 96% compliance rate. And that's just, maybe that's just me being pessimistic, but we're having a problem now. I think that problem will continue in the future, especially if we increase rates. So I'm just asking that the board just monthly, I'm not asking for every week, I'm not asking for every other week. If we have a monthly communication, via memo, via however the people at large decide that, if we just keep aware of what's going on.
Any other questions concerning rates? So it is the consent of the board that we will move from the $5.50. $3.50 to $5.50.
Well, I think we're going to vote on it the next meeting, but I think we can run it.
Any other questions?